What's up, cooks? Welcome to the Card Kitchen. I am the Card Chef, and today we are cooking up all new deck ideas for the new EX Pokemon that we saw coming out so far in Shinin' Revelry, and we are going to kick it off with the new Charizard EX. This is kind of a spicy build. Obviously, I think most people are going to try to build this right away with Moltres. However, I actually think using a tank like Druddigon might actually help this deck out a little bit, and I honestly am going to be playing a one fire energy and one water energy in this deck. I know it's going to decrease the consistency a little bit. However, now we get to play Irida in this deck if we so choose, because we are playing the water energy. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to be trying to tank with your Druddigon, and what this does, it allows you to get into your Charizard, evolve into it a little bit more consistently, because you have a tank out there, so it'll buy you some time, and it'll also help fix those breakpoints because people are going to be attacking into your Druddigon. So fix those breakpoints that you would otherwise not have without playing the old Charizard, because obviously we all know the old Charizard for 4 energy does 200 damage but then discards 2 energy. Now that it's 5 for 150 only, we do need to find new ways in order to make those breakpoints, especially with giant capes around. Druddigon will help you with this, as well as red. We are playing one copy of red. Let's just go through the whole deck really quickly. It's 2 Druddigon, 2 Charizard lines, the 2 Charizard, obviously the new Charizard EX, 2 Pokeball, 2 Giant Cape, 1 Communication, 2 Professor's Research, 1 Iono. Because we're playing 1 Communication, we want to be able to play 1 Iono as well to increase that consistency of trying to get into our Charizard, as stage 2s are really hard to get into sometimes. 1 red to fix breakpoints alongside Druddigon, like we just mentioned, the Irida, because we are again playing water energy. 1 leaf to either get that Druddigon out or retreat the Charizard EX when we need to, and then 1 Cyrus. So I honestly think, I'm not saying this is going to be the best version of the deck, and you can also just not play water energy and remove the Irida and replace it for something else, or you can go along with the Moltres build. It would basically be 2 Moltres, 2 Charizard lines, and then of course replacing the Irida for other cards. But I do think, as much as I do still believe the old Charizard is the better version, I do believe this card, it will be a little bit more consistent in being able to sweep games with your Druddigon fixing those breakpoints, and then your second attack trying to sweep the game with the red. It's also it's fair to mention that because we are buying time with Druddigon as a tank, it is likely that we will get 1 fire energy at minimum by the time we want to bring our Charizard in to use Stoke if we need to. So it's not so bad to try and play water and fire in this deck together. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So the next deck we are going to look at is Lucario EX. Now that we most likely will not be playing specifically in this deck for this fighting deck, the baby Lucario that gives 20 extra damage to our fighting type Pokemon, we can now maybe start putting things like Farfetch back into fighting toolbox decks. And so basically the way I built this deck is 2 Farfetch, 1 Sudowoodo, 2 Lucario EX lines, and 1 Marshadow. I would have liked to maybe put in a Hitmonlee. However, now that Lucario hits the bench as well for 30 damage, I don't think the Hitmonlee is absolutely necessary. And because we're no longer playing the baby Lucario, we need to make up these breakpoints for whenever we can. And so what we're going to do is add in 2 red. So let's go through the whole deck really quickly. 2 Farfetch, 1 Sudowoodo, 2 Lucario EX, 1 Marshadow, 2 Giant Capes, 2 Pokeball, 1 X Speed, 2 red, 2 Professor's Research, 1 Cyrus, 1 Sabrina, and 1 Leaf. The Sudowoodo and the Lucario EX both have 2 retreat costs, so we need to be able to get them out without wasting our energy. So therefore, we are playing 1 Leaf, and the X speed is, of course, because we want to make sure we have the correct Pokemon we want in the front at the beginning of the game to start doing damage, whether that be something like the Sudowoodo to attack into EX Pokemon, or the Farfetch to attack into whatever we can. Farfetch in red will be able to do 60 damage to the Pokemon EX, and then of course the Sudowoodo will be able to do 70. So depending on what we have at any given time, we have a pretty good aggressive early game and then a pretty decent late game with Lucario EX being able to do 100 in damage, potentially 120 damage with its attack, plus 30 more to the bench, including red, of course, in that entire thing. So I don't know, again, if this deck will be meta relevant, but if we do decide to play Lucario X, again, we're probably not going to be playing the baby Lucario, so we are able to play non-fighting type cards like Farfetch'd in these fighting type aggressive decks, at least early game aggressiveness. So with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So the next deck I want to look at is the new Pikachu EX. This is the idea. I came up with it. I'm sure a lot of people will as well, but basically we're going to be putting the new Pachirisu and the new Pikachu EX in this new version of the deck, and we are going to be playing it alongside the Electivire from, I believe it was Triumphant Light, I'm pretty sure, yeah. But anyways, the deck is 2 Pikachu EX, 2 Electivire lines, 2 Pachirisu, 2 X-Speed, 2 Pokeball, 2 Volkner, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Dawn, 1 Red, and 1 Cyrus. So basically the idea of the deck is to start trying to ramp early on as much as we can. So we are playing the Electabuzz from Triumphant Light as well. That can ramp onto itself in case we need to start ramping up very early to get into our Electivire. But we really do want to be starting with our Pachirisu in the active. So therefore we are playing 2x speed. Then we can start ramping onto our Pikachu EX. And then by our second turn of attack, what we can do is we can X speed the Pachirisu out. Pikachu EX already has 1 energy on it. You can put another one for manual, and then you can don the one that is on your Pachirisu onto your Pikachu EX and possibly get 150 damage into a Pokemon EX and get 2 prizes right away, and then try to either one, build up the Pikachu EX again, or finish off a Pokemon in the late game with Electivire by taking all those energies that you discarded into your discard pile and using Volkner to put them onto your Electivire and doing 120 damage again to finish something off. You might want to play something like a Sabrina instead of a Cyrus in this deck, now that I think of it, to be honest, because if nothing on the bench has damage, you can't bring it out to knock it out with Electivire, and Sabrina might be able to bring in something that is 120 or less HP in order to actually knock it out with your Electivire and finish the game off. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So the next deck we are going to look at is Paldean Clodsire EX. This Pokemon basically has the exact same attack as the Scolipede that we got from Mythical Island. It's Venoshock, and it does 60 damage plus 60 more if your opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, and it does it for only 2 dark energy. And basically this is like an upgraded version of the Scolipede, because Scolipede has pretty much the exact same attack for the same amount of energy, but this Pokemon is a stage 1 instead of a stage 2. It's also an EX, so it has 160 HP, which is even more than the Scolipede, which means this deck is going to be a lot more consistent than the Scolipede version. The issue this deck is going to have is the fact that Arceus is everywhere and is in a lot of different types of builds of Arceus builds, because there's so many different Link Pokemon. There's also Dialga Arceus, which is probably one of the best decks in the game. And then there's also a bunch of other just Arceus decks that have nothing to do with Dialga or the Link decks that are built around Arceus. So it's going to be really hard maybe to still play this deck. But if you do decide it, I basically build it the exact same way that a Scolipede deck would have been built. 2 Weezing lines, 2 Clodsire EX lines, and then 1 Salandit from, I forget which set it is, but basically if the opponent's Pokemon is poisoned, it does a bunch of extra damage. We are playing 1 Iona, 2 Pokeball, 2 Communication, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Koga because we are playing Weezing, 1 Cyrus, and 1 Leaf. The Leaf is going to be super important because what you're going to need to do is once you get that first knockout with Clodsire after poisoning something with Weezing and Kogaing it back, you're going to have to poison something again most likely. So what you're going to want to do is leaf it out. It'll waste 1 of its energies, but then it'll still have 1 on it, so that when you finally do poison something, you can actually just Koga the Weezing, the second Weezing out, and then bring in the Clodsire and put the additional energy that it actually still needs. So this deck, I do believe, will be pretty decent as long as you're not going up against Arceus, to be completely honest. But that is going to be a huge hill to climb because, again, Arceus is in everything right now. You're going to be seeing a lot, especially probably on ranked ladder once it comes out. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So this is the next deck that we want to look at. It's a Tinkaton EX deck. The deck will be just 2 Dialga and 2 Tinkaton EX lines. I use the Bishop line here to fill in the blanks because we don't know what the Tinkaton's pre-evolution forms look like. So just know that they are the full lines of Tinkaton. So again, 2 Dialga EX, 2 Tinkaton EX lines, 2 Pokeball, 2 Potion, 2 Adamant, 2 Professor's Research, 1 Cyrus, 1 Leaf, and 2 Cape. Basically, we want to be able to keep these big HP Steel type Pokemon or Metal type Pokemon on the field for as long as possible without giving up any prize cards. So of course, we're playing the Capes and the Potions as well as Adamant. And then once we get some 1 or 2 Pokemon completely filled up because of Dialga, we can bring in that Tinkaton and then just rely on those lucky coin flips, trying to do 160 each turn. You can also throw in something like a red to get that 180 breakpoint because you might need it, but Dialga might have already put 30 damage on something for your first attack. So when you bring it out, when you bring out the Tinkaton doing 160 plus the 30 from Dialga, you're basically going to knock out anything anyways, but you need to get that coin flip. But the 1 coin flip is a lot more easier to get than something like a Marowak who has to get 2 heads to do 80 for each heads. So I actually think Tinkaton EX might be something that's pretty decent, and I'm really hoping at some point that there will be a coin flip ability that either a Pokemon or a tool card will have that will help coin flip cards or attacks on Pokemon be a little bit more consistent. We can get into that another time, but this is the deck that I would build for Tinkaton when it comes out. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So the next deck we are looking at is the Bibarel EX deck. So this card is very similar to both Lapras EX and Venusaur EX, where it basically heals a certain amount of damage from itself every time it attacks. Unfortunately, it has a 4 energy requirement to do so, and it does 100 damage. However, we can ramp into this pretty quickly, and the one I've decided to use as my ramper is Manaphy over something like a Dialga, and the reason I did that is because I want to be able to play Iridas. So basically, it's going to work in the way that once you get your Bibarel EX in the active, it's just going to stay there for as long as it humanly can until you just sweep the game by chipping in for 100 damage each turn, and basically it's going to stay on the field forever, or at least we hope it will, because we are playing 2 Shaman, 2 Potion, 2 Irida, and 2 Giant Cape. So of course the 2 Bibarel EX lines, the 2 Shaman, the 2 Manaphy are our Pokemon, 2 Pokeball, 2 Potion, 2 Professor Research, 2 Irida, 1 Cyrus, and 1 Dawn, and the 2 Giant Cape as mentioned. So again, we want our Manaphy to ramp, we want our Shaman to heal, our Bibarel, we want our Bibarel to stay on the online as long as humanly humanly possible by, again, healing with Shaman, healing with potions, getting the extra HP from capes, and healing with Irida. And then the Dawn is because once we get 1 or 2 Manaphy's rampant onto our other Pokemon, we want to be able to bring our Bibarel in and then just be able to Dawn one of those energies that are someone else and get that attack going in as soon as we possibly can. And so anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So the next deck we want to look at is the Giratina EX that I've built, and is actually going to be a new Mewtwo EX deck. Obviously the Mewtwo EX from Genetic Apex. I theorize we might get a new Mewtwo EX. However, I feel like it probably would have been revealed by now. But the reason I theorized it is because we're getting a new Pikachu and a new Charizard EX. So therefore, I assumed we might get a Mewtwo EX. But if we don't, this is what I would build. It would be 2 of the baby Giratina, the one that gets free retreat when it has any amount of energy on it. So that would be used as our tank to sit in the active at the beginning of the game while we manually put our energy on Mewtwo and then ramp energy with Giratina. And we do not care if our turn ends, because basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be ramping onto Giratina, manually onto our Mewtwo, and then once we decide to retreat our Giratina or it gets knocked out, we bring in that Mewtwo with 2 energy on it, and then you can Dawn one of the energy on Giratina, and it'll probably have multiple. So we are playing 2 Dawn, so we'll Dawn 1 and then manual 1 onto Mewtwo EX, and it will have 4. It will attack for 150, most likely knock out whatever it's hidden into, and then on the following turn, like I said, Giratina will probably also have a second energy on it, the Giratina EX, because it ramped multiple times, and then you can use your second Dawn and a manual to get back onto Mewtwo EX. So basically Giratina EX in and of itself has completely replaced Gardevoir in my opinion, and this might make Mewtwo EX pretty strong again, because it is doing again 150 HP from a basic for 4 energy that can attack twice in a row, potentially even more if you get more energy on Mewtwo and more energy on Giratina, being able to do those Dawn combos that like you can going throughout the game. So the rest of the deck, 2 Pokeball, 2 Potion, 2 Giant Cape, because we do want to be able to keep our Mewtwo or our Giratina, the baby version, in the front to keep tanking or for as long as it possibly can. So we do need some type of healing. There is a lot of healing and additional HP to keep Pokemon on the field for a long time, especially since we are starting to see a lot of Pokemon outputting a lot of damage. Arceus is doing 130, Pikachu and Charizard, and as well as this Mewtwo EX, like I said, are all doing 150, and there's just a bunch of damage being outputted by a lot of Pokemon, like very big damage. So you do need to be paying Giant Capes and possibly Potions. And then, of course, we are going to be playing Professor's Research, 2 Leaf, Giratina EX and Mewtwo EX both have 2 retreat costs. I think we need to play it at 2, and then 1 Sabrina, 1 Cyrus. I love that split, and so I actually think this deck might be pretty decent, as long as Dark isn't just still super duper strong. But if it is, this deck might not be as strong as I think it might be, but this I do believe will be the best way to play Mewtwo EX going forward in the future. Giratina EX basically completely replacing Gardevoir. So the next deck we're going to look at is Wugtrio EX. This is basically the new water Pokemon that has the exact same attack as Dragonite, except it requires 3 energy to attack instead of 4, and it's a stage 1 instead of a stage 2. It does 50 less overall damage than Dragonite otherwise would, but 150 spread damage, potentially hitting 1 Pokemon, 2 or 3, is pretty strong actually. And I do believe when you mix it in with things like Palkia and Articuno, which we are doing in this deck, the spread damage in and of itself will allow you to win games. And even if it doesn't, because we are playing Palkia EX, we are able to get one-shots as well. So I do think this deck is pretty decent. So the deck is 2 Wugtrio EX lines, 1 Articuno, 2 Palkia EX, 2 Manaphy, 2 Pokeball, 2 Misty, 2 Professor's Research, 2 Cyrus, because we are playing so much spread damage. Every single Pokemon on your opponent's side of the board will most likely be online to get Cyrus out. So we are going to be playing two Irida because it's a water deck, and one Dawn because obviously Manaphy being able to put a bunch of energy spread out, Dawn will be super valuable, and we are not playing Vaporeon in this deck. So the whole idea will to be able to ramp a ton of energy with Manaphy, bring in your Wugtrio as soon as you possibly can, start spreading damage, and then even if it gets knocked out, you've most likely done enough spread damage that now you could bring a Palkia in, and then Cyrus, a huge HP Pokemon out, knock it out with Palkia, and then also potentially knock out something else on the bench because again, it's doing 20 to each Pokemon on the bench, and then Articuno works in that same way. But the reason why we've added the Articuno is because we want to be able to have 7 basics in the deck so that Manaphy always has something to at least 2 to 3 Pokemon on your bench so you can ramp to multiple Pokemon, and so you want to increase that chance by playing 7 basics. But you can obviously remove the Articuno if you so please and add in something else. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next deck. So this is the last deck we're going to look at. It's the Beedrill EX deck that I've built, and it's very like, I don't really know if this will be the final version that I play. This is the only one that I could really think of as of right now. I basically did a Leafeon Beedrill deck. I would like, when this comes out, to try and build an energy control deck. However, for right now, I do believe we just want to be able to get in early and keep our Leafeon and our Beedrill online as possibly as we can, because this is going to be chipping for damage more than it will be sweeping for big damage attacks. And so we want to be able to get into our Leafeon as quickly as possible. We are going to be playing 2 Leafeon line, 2 Beedrill line, and then 1 communication. And then we're going to be playing things like Erica and Giant Capes to be able to heal and increase our HP of our EX grass type Pokemon. We are going to be playing Cyrus over something like a Sabrina. Because we are doing chip damage, we will most likely see retreats in the game. Obviously 2 Professor's Research and 2 Pokeball. I think you could also try and find a way to fit in 1 Iona to increase consistency of getting into your evolution lines a little bit. But I also just don't know where grass will be when this set fully reveals, because again, we do have, I think it's the Sprigatito, that evolves into a stage 2 at some point, I believe. We don't know what that does. We don't know if we're going to get some other energy control cards like Beedrill. We don't know if we might get things like Rare Candy or things to help us evolve into stage 1s and 2s a lot quicker. So we don't really know exactly where this deck's going to be. I would, again, like to build an energy control deck, but I don't know if that is absolutely necessary. And I don't really know, even if we could, if it will actually do anything, because there's just so much ramping with things like Leafeon, Dialga, Manaphy, Magnezone. There's so many ways to ramp energy right now. Even Giratina coming out, as well as Gardevoir still in the game. There's so many ways to ramp energy that removing 1 energy from your opponent's active Pokemon might not actually do as much as we think, even if now we finally don't have to flip any coins. But anyways, with that being said, that is all the EX Pokemon decks that I've come out with. 1 for each. I have other builds, but I felt like I just wanted to do 1 for each right now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and share. Join my Discord and my Twitter. And as always, keep cooking.